You're listening to Life Check Yourself with life coach, transformational leader, and dating and relationship badass, Marni Battista. Every week, you'll get the raw truth from top experts and real people on the important life and love issues you want to know about. So if you're ready to life check yourself in your relationships, your career, and the areas of your life that matter most to you, and you're not afraid to be called out on your stuff, then you're ready for what's next.
Dr. Ken Druck, how to go on in a what now moment. Ladies, welcome. We are back with another scintillating episode of Life Check Yourself. This conversation is a powerful one. If you're feeling a little sensitive, maybe you've had a big loss in your life, this may be something you want to skip. What I would encourage you to do is to dig deep and possibly believe that this is exactly what you need to hear so that you can move on and find some peace and healing, because I have a really special guest today, Ken Druck. His pioneering work on how to go on in times of adversity after a loss, overcoming family crisis, mastering the loss of our youth as we get older, becoming good citizens of our historical experiment in democracy. All of these things can make our lives feel chaotic and confusing at best. Ken has written best-selling books. He's made appearances on national TV. He's coached leaders in business and government to establish him as a great thought leader of our time. And he went on his own personal journey after the tragic death of his daughter, Jenna. And the groundbreaking work that he was able to tap into as a byproduct of that tragedy has allowed him to work magic with bereaved families and teach people how to go on from life's worst losses. And so I'm super, super honored to have you here. I've seen so many experiences of this in my life, and where in my own life and so many people that I've worked with, there's like a level of getting on with it, and then there's a deeper level of getting through it and really coming out the other side. And I am just so happy that you're here to kind of help us go to that deeper level. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Marni. It's an honor and a pleasure to be with you and with everybody that's watching, that's tuned in, and inviting them to go on that deep dive with us into whatever kind of what now moment they might be having.
Yeah, and I want to start off by talking about a what now moment that I know that I'm talking to a lot of clients with, and sort of came to me in my own experience of life, and then we're going to talk about the loss of a loved one as well. But I want to kind of start off this way and ask you some questions about it. And I know you have a new book out, so I want to make sure that we point people to that, and that's going to be a great resource for people. And so one of the things that I really see coming through, and this happened to me when in 2020 I had this traumatic ski accident. It was 2 weeks before lockdown. I was in bed rest. There were times in the beginning of that where I was like, am I ever going to be able to walk again in the same way that I had before? Is what's going to happen to my life? And that coupled with, losing a phase in my life where my children left the nest and looking at the rest of my life. And so I wanted to just kind of start with there, like this question of like, how do I go on? It's interesting because I think that if people are moved by someone's reaction to how do I go on, right? That's like the greatest TED Talks, the greatest leaders, the greatest documentaries and movies get made out of this, right? But when we're going through it, people are like, why is this happening to me? There's no, we forget about all of that. So can you just sort of start there and talk about like why that is, and if we have that moment going on in our life, or we have, like, what's the first step?
Thank you for sharing that. The first step for me and for so many of the people that I work with is exactly what you just said. It's saying, look at me in this what now moment? Do I have my foot on my throat telling me to hurry up, get over it, figure it out, get on with it? What's wrong with you? Am I in that, on this continuum from harsh self-criticism to kind self-compassion? Where is my voice? What am I saying to myself about my broken leg? What am I saying to myself about my kids are moving into the realm of their own independent lives? What am I saying to myself about that? What's the narrative that's playing up here that's either going to lift me up, allow me to summon newfound courage and strength and clarity and a new vision to reimagine my future, or that would cause me to squander this as an opportunity to become the better version of me? And is my hand on my heart saying, of course you don't know what to do. How could you? This is all new.
Right.
Of course you're in pain physically and emotionally and spiritually because you've taken a hit. Of course, you're in physical pain. You broke your leg. You shattered it. You love movement. This is you talking to you. I love to move. I love my walking. I love my hiking. I love the movement in my life. Am I going to lose that now? Is that what's going to happen to me? So how could you not feel fearful? How could you not be in a moment of questioning and inquiry at the beginning of an inquiry about how does life go on? How do we go on when our kids grow up? What becomes of us? Do I lose my identity? Do I lose my kids? Is this what I call living loss? Do I lose my status? Do I lose the affection, the love, the connection that I've so enjoyed, that has enriched my life so much? So the first step is just having our hand on our heart and saying, of course, this is a moment where my game plan or my blueprint for the future has unraveled or needs to be recalibrated and reset. So am I going to give myself impatience and pressure and criticism and blame and beat myself up for not having the answer? Or am I going to keep my hand on my heart, be patient, be kind, surround myself with people who can listen, not try to fix me or talk me out of what I'm feeling, but to surround myself with people, but to surround myself with my own kindness and self-care so that I can begin to create the path forward.
I love this. I think that the narrative is so important in that the monologue we have between our ears. And what's interesting too is like, I don't know what you call it, but I almost call it like comparative pain. Like, so for me, I broke a bunch of 7 places in my sacrum, right? But what I was told was that if it would have been like, if you were this far away from like not being able to ever walk, right? So part of me, when I was not being kind to myself, I was like, be grateful. It could have been so much worse, or people go like, well, people can have so much more pain, or, look at people in the Ukraine. Like, it's almost like part of that, having a difficulty with putting your hand on your heart, is we're so tough on ourselves and saying, well, our pain doesn't matter because there's people with more pain, so mine doesn't count.
That's
so
right. Look how grateful I'm being, but the fact is our foot is still on our throat.
Yeah.
Like, we're not being grateful enough. You're not putting things in perspective clearly enough. It's like, what if? And that part of us that has probably over the years learned how to talk us out of saying, damn, or the aw shits in our life, the part of us that has talked us out of that when we most needed to be able to vent that safely, to have permission to say, this sucks. I hate this. I hate that it happened. Don't ask me to put a spin on this.
Right.
Don't try to, because that's my foot on my throat. My hand on my heart is saying, how could I not feel hurt or confused or scared or want to talk myself out of these feelings by telling myself, well, at least, at least this, your kids are leaving home.
Right.
There's they didn't die.
Right.
Yeah. What are you feeling sorry for yourself? In other words, we come at ourselves, some of us who have really cultivated a beautiful gratitude and a wise perspective that there is stuff going on, that we live in a bubble in some ways in our lives.
Right. Yes.
We live in a country where there aren't bombs falling, where children are not, majority of children are not starving and can drink clean water, and on and on and on. And we look at all the blessings, gifts, and miracles of our lives, and we allow that to talk us out of that what now moment where we are just in pain and scared and don't know how to move forward. And rather than allowing that, because when we allow it, when we give ourselves permission to be human and we don't try to talk ourselves, what organically happens, it's not the synthetic positive think,
right,
that we impose, or that you should be grateful, criticism or whatever. It's the organic arising in us. It's the summoning of clarity, of strength, of courage, especially, and of faith that somehow, some way, I'm going to find the path forward and I'm going to honor what I've lost. I'm going to walk, people ask me, Ken, it's been 27 years since you lost your daughter. How are you?
Yeah.
And I tell people, you know what? I walk with a limp in my heart. And if you look deeply into my eyes, you'll see that I carry a sorrow that my daughter didn't get to live out this life.
Mm-hmm.
And that will probably be there forever. It just sucks that this beautiful young woman who was taking the world by storm, who loved her dad, who was so loved by her dad, doesn't get to play on. And that's important for me to register without shame, without explanation, defenses, and whatnot. It's okay for me that it wasn't okay, that what happened wasn't okay. And I give myself that permission, and that's what organically allows strength and faith and courage to arise within me, and perspective.
Yeah. And that's true bravery, right? Like, to be with it rather than shut it away.
Exactly.
Right. In my family, my husband's brother died when he was 2. He choked. And my mother-in-law, just won't speak. She just doesn't, bless her, right? But it's too much. She won't speak of it. And I think that's whether you're loss of a parent or a loss of a child or a divorce or whatever, bankruptcy, whatever it is, right? That we go through in our life, there's this tendency to think, instead of what Ken's talking about, which is open to it and be there with it, to put it away.
Exactly.
Right. And put it in a box and lock it up and hope that it's not there. So tell me, because you've done this work and been around in the front lines of 9/11, Columbine, Sandy Hook, too many to know, to name. So when you see people in these experiences, how do you go on, right? So if you take your foot off your throat and you go, okay, I'm going to be with this, then what, right? What have these tragedies taught you, and what have you learned from these experiences, counseling and helping these people?
Well, the first step is always me. It's I've got to learn to be compassionate with anybody else, to be with them, as you so beautifully said, to walk and stand with them, to go on this journey with them, wherever they are, requires me to know my own self-compassion. So the first step is always, am I practicing what I'm teaching other people to do every day? Because every day is an invitation to either go to self-criticism or to go to kindness and understanding. And even when it's tough love, kindness. So that's the first step. The second step is to take that compassion to say, and to turn it outwards and to say, what would I want to be recognized? How would I want to be met if I was a person who was hiding, denying, repressing, out drinking, out trying to numb, out trying to work or run fast enough to get the hell away from feelings that I hated, such as with your mother-in-law. And the first thing I would do is I would want to be recognized and understood. I'd want somebody to come out and say, I can see or have the sense of how hard this is for you to even talk about, how defenseless you are against those kinds of feelings. What it evokes in you, it's like your own death. It's worse than your own death to think about it, because it is beyond your system's ability to think about it, to process, or to bear the pain of it.
Yeah.
And when you say that to somebody who's in avoidance, who's made a lifetime of avoidance, even when the debt came due, even when they realized that they had given up a good part of the joy in their life, they had turned their back on things that could happen, opportunities. For me, if you had told me right after Jenna died that I would ever experience a moment of joy, I would have choked you and thrown you to the ground, or I would have walked away and said, how clueless can some people be?
Right.
Here I am.
Wow.
Here I am the last couple of years, sitting on the beach with my 2 grandsons with tears streaming down, because nothing special has happened, because it's all special. Because I am so blessed to be witnessing the blossoming of these little ETs who are becoming boys and human beings, who look at me and say, Poppy, why do we have to die? They're 2.5 years old. They're asking existential questions. Or, wow, Poppy, is that cloud look more like a dolphin or a dragon to you? So tears are streaming down, and because there's a joy in me that is awakened that I have not disallowed, because I did allow my sorrow a voice. And I needed my hand held. Yeah. I needed the comfort and the closeness of trusted confidants and people who'd been through it, who would just stand with me. Thank God for the other people and the support that we have in our lives. And I needed my own faith and courage to say, I'm going to go forward and live out the rest of whatever days I have with as much gratitude for the life that I get to live on, and honoring my daughter by how I live it.
That's so
I have
beautiful.
something called 7 honorings. For those in your audience who have suffered a loss, I have something called the 7 honorings. Our own survival is the first honoring, doing something good in their name, bodying the spiritual element, the love that never dies, expressing it in our lives, and writing new chapters of life, and so on and so forth. But that's the way. And when I meet with a mom whose 5-year-old just died, was murdered at Sandy Hook, or 2 weeks ago, I gave the speech for the 9/11 22nd anniversary in New York. I gave the keynote. And what do you say to people, who watched, who's a woman whose son or brother, a man whose brother was in the second tower, whose future was obliterated as they knew it, and who experienced the death of their own life as they knew it.
Right.
It's with that compassionate heart and willingness to listen and acknowledge how difficult this is for them. It's that compassion that often frees them to say, thank God I found a safe place to be able to talk about how this really is for me, and let me let go and share that. And when that does, something lifts, lifts, and it clears the ability in us to take what began as the purest love that became an unspeakable sorrow, and to turn it back into the purest love.
Oh, that's so beautiful. So, by the way, tell everybody the name of your book so that they can find out about these 7 honorings.
How We Go On. And if they go to howwegoon.com, they can find out all about it.
Okay. And we'll have a link to the book in the show notes and all of those things.
Book, ebook, audio book.
Take it in. Take it in. It's, you and I had to reschedule, and I was thinking when you were talking that it's so perfect and so divine because it was just the Jewish high holidays. And I like to universalize all of the teachings that I ever hear in any kind of denomination. But the Sunday night, the rabbi was talking about how when we turn toward death, we actually turn towards life, right? Like by acknowledging that death, then we can, what you just said is so beautiful. Then how can we go through that process so that we can live the life that we have, that we can honor that person? I love that you said, I think when I think about my parents, because we all ultimately, hopefully lose our parents before they lose us, in your case, right? But there's that thing of like, how do we choose the legacy that they left to us, and how do we embody that, and how do we carry it on, and how do we choose what we're going to keep and what we're going to, let go? Because there's also those things we usually want to not keep and pass on, right? But I love that and I think this is what I want everyone to really hear, is that what Ken's talking about is it's an active process. It's not like you just, go to your room and you turn the light off and pull the covers over your head and hope that in 5 years you wake up and you're healed and you've done these honorings and you've gone through the process. That you don't want to isolate. You want to be in community. You want to take steps. You want to be active in creating something from the loss, that what you're saying then allows the space of love to return. Because that's the tragedy, right? Like the tragedy that keeps repeating itself is when we can't do anything except, be drowned by our pain. Is that kind of what you're saying?
We have a choice. We don't get to play God and decide whether everything works out for the people we love.
Yeah.
But we do at some point, and in the beginning of a traumatic loss, we are in a moment of choicelessness. Somebody comes up and says, well, the glass is half full. Kick them out of the house.
Right, exactly.
But at some point, we do have a choice to begin to make our pain the central organizing principle of our life, or our love the central organizing principle of our life. And every day is like Groundhog Day. We get up, we wake up, and we say, which path am I going to go on? And some days we're just so brokenhearted, we wander down the path of making our pain the center of our life, around which everything revolves. And some days we summon new strength, and we go down that path, and we say, and for me, it's seeing both of my earth daughter and my angel daughter at the end of that path, and they're saying, Daddy, we're so proud of you. Mm-hmm. You fought your way back into life. You loved us both, each in the way that was possible. You never stopped loving us. You never stopped being our father. And we love you. And that's what I see at the end of that path. At the end of this path, where I make my pain the center of my universe, I would understand it if I saw both of my daughters, pissing on my grave.
Right.
My earth daughter would be saying, Dad, you quit. You quit being my father. I mean, I even had kids. I met the man of my dreams. I lived out this life. I started a business. You were never able to participate in the richness of my life as it went on. And my angel daughter would be saying, Dad, you made my death the reason for your quitting on life. And I couldn't imagine anything that would make me in a heavenly or spiritual realm sadder than that.
Right.
So for me, it's the choice that I make every day, and that I've cultivated that
so beautiful
practice of choosing to make my love the center. And when people read, by the way, my book, you said something wonderful about death. I have a novel idea. The last chapter of my book is called Ken's Moonshot. Mm. What could be a moonshot of a guy like, well, it's talking about death. It's making some measure of peace with death. And the whole chapter is about that. You know what let me give all of your listeners this incredible show that you do and podcast that you offer. The antidote to spending the last part of your years, or any part of your years, dreading death, fearing death, being consumed and paralyzed by the fact that life has an ending, there's an expiration date on the lease, is gratitude.
Yeah, wow, beautiful.
It's cultivating the ability to say, how did I get this gift? I get to be alive. I draw nourishment from air. My system is so alive, my emotional system sends up signals to tell me how I'm feeling. My body translates what's available into being. I'm conscious and awake. I can think about myself. I can express love. I can receive love. This life and this gift is a miracle. How could I not feel grateful for the years I've been given? How could I not feel grateful for the miracle? We're on this grain of sand swirling through not just one universe. Neil deGrasse Tyson told us this year, there are universes, not just the one we're in. How could I not be grateful for the gift of this life and the gifts, the miracles, the treasures I've been given, the love I've been given, the love I've been able to give, that I now have a chance to pay forward? So gratitude enables us to want to pay the best in ourselves forward and in our world, because there's a social element to this about what we're doing for the environment, what we're doing for our family, what we're doing for our country, the experiment called a democracy that we're living in. There are things we can do for people in the world who are suffering. So it's paying it forward in whatever expression, in whatever way we're capable.
I love that. I think that the power of choice gets really lost when you said it so eloquently, like, there's those moments, there's the phase, there's the part, right, where you can't see choice, right? And then it becomes a choice to see even choice, I would guess, right? Like, and when you think about, like, because I'm sure people who are listening are even thinking about this in terms of like great loves that they've lost, right? Or relationships that they thought were going to be the one. I was talking to someone last week. She's married for like 28 years. Husband literally wakes up one day and says, I'm done, right? And you have this, and this is what you're talking about too, is there's this imagined timeline of how you think your life is going to go, the blueprint, the great plan, right? And then it gets washed away. So when people think, or they're like, 10 years have passed, 15 years have passed, is there, and you've worked with so many people on such great tragedies, is there a timeline for this thing? Like, is it like you wake up and you go, I want to choose to align to love today after 10 years or 10 months?
Grief, some parts of grief occur within time, where there's a linear progression, and we try to keep score of the healing in our heart by time. But what we miss out on is that some grief occurs outside of time, beyond time. You can't ask your heart. You can't tell your heart, as when I'm walking behind a beautiful young woman who has the blonde hair of my daughter, Jenna, and I get triggered. Or when I went to the celebration of life funeral of one of my daughter's friends last week. I didn't know that 20 of her friends from high school were going to be there. Dr. Druck, you probably don't remember me. I was Jenna's, and of course I remember all of them, but how could I not get triggered? And what am I supposed to do? Look at my heart and say, what's wrong with you?
Right.
How come you're still having these feelings? It's been 27 years. So what kind of judgmental internal critic and judge makes up the rules for a person who's kept his love alive?
Right.
How could he not be triggered into a moment of sorrow, a moment of remembrance of the dearest and sweetest years of my life when my daughter was here? So grief occurs in time and out of time. And we can't look at our watches. I mean, I had somebody 2 years after Jenna died, I finally went out walking in the streets and whatnot. I ran into this woman and she said, "Oh, Ken, in big fanfare. Oh, Ken, how are you?" And I looked at her and I said, "You may not have heard, but Jenna died." And she looked at me and she said, "Yeah, but wasn't that 2 years ago?"
My God.
So
No.
we're not a grief literate culture in society. I
Right.
teach grief literacy at the Harvard School of Public Health occasionally. And I also train young psychiatrists at UCSD Medical School. And what I most want to teach them is that this is not a linear progression, that people should find a safety in them and in the places they create to be able to say what their grief is, what their sorrow is saying to them,
Yeah.
and not to judge them, but to give them the safety to talk about it. Because right behind that sorrow, right behind emptiness, right behind unknowingness and lostness is a foundness, is a knowingness, are all the things that we need to go on. So this creating the safety in ourselves, in our own bodies and minds and hearts, and in the room in which we have a blessing of being with another person who's going through their what now moment, their dark night of the soul moment. The blessing is that we can really help them heal and help them feel safe and help them go on.
Oh my gosh. And what you said, it was so like you're just aligning to that piece of love, right? Like, because I'm living in love and I've kept that love alive, I haven't like tried to turn it off or turn it down. And even if it is a love relationship and it wasn't your person or it's not your person anymore, like, it's still okay to have that love, right? Like, that doesn't diminish the love that you had or that you thought you had or any of those things. So I think that for those of you who are grieving those things, like, I think that a lot of this for sure applies. And to have lost a loving relationship, whether it worked or it didn't work, it doesn't mean that you have to discount or put away the part that was good, because there's a polarity, right? Or else you wouldn't have had a loss. There wouldn't have been loss if you wouldn't have had love, right?
At the end of when I work with couples, at the end of the couples that have decided they're going to go on from this as a marriage, but they have children and they don't want to be contentious. They don't want to put their kids in the crossfire of unfinished business and create split loyalty feelings in their children. And they ask, how can we possibly do this? It's an interesting clearing, because I ask them two things. I say, get 2 blank pieces of paper, write 1 to 25 on each piece, and start the first one with the first one starts with the FU for.
Right.
And get all the FUs for the time you did this, when you didn't listen, when you didn't love me the way I needed to be loved in that moment, or when you went bankrupt. It could be anything.
Right.
All the FUs for. And the second sheet is more difficult, because it starts with, every sentence begins with, thank you for.
I love that.
The gratitude that's even harder to speak, but that leads to a non-contentious divorce, where people feel like, well, maybe in the future feelings will bubble up or whatever, and anger or whatever. But I have taken a mass amount of the gratitude and the anger that I have in this relationship that is undeniable. I've given it expression with my partner. They've given theirs expression with me. We've cleared the path forward, and our children are not going to get caught in the crossfire.
That's so beautiful. I'm reminded of the Ho'oponopono prayer, right? Where you go and you say, thank you for, I love you, and I'm sorry. And people are like, why are you saying that to someone, that you feel did you wrong? And having done that in a lot of different processes, it's like your list, right? And so it creates forgiveness so that you can heal and go on, because in the end, it's about realigning to the, to the love
Yes.
that's in you. And then also the other thing is that polarity inside both of us, right? Like we can be so mad at the universe, God, whatever, and also understand that, that this is something our soul is experiencing for our highest good and we don't know what. Like both things are happening at the same time, which then allows that, what you're talking about, that hand on heart and that self-compassion. Okay, my last question, I know we're going over, but you're just so delicious. Is when you talk about the path forward in your book and in the teaching that you do, do you define that? Is there a definition for that? So someone can say, okay, I've chosen Ken to take the path forward. What does that mean to you?
It's really a decision. The path forward is what can happen. It's the realm of possibility that we embrace when we tell the truth to ourselves, to others. It's when we really get clear about what really matters, what really counts. When we summon the courage to fight the good fight, to fight our way back into life, even though the old normal has been obliterated. And we say to ourselves, I'm going to do this. I can do this. And I'm going to do it without my foot on my throat. I'm going to do it with my hand on my heart, taking the time, getting the help that I need, the support that I need, easing my way back into my life, parts of my life I want to continue, but doing so with gentleness and kindness and patience and doing the best we can. It's really the path forward is the realm of possibility that I am creating by keeping these agreements with myself, by doing the best I can to move forward from this moment and with compassion and kindness. So that's what we do.
This. I love this. So you all have to go to howwegoon.com so you can get this book, and there's a self-care handbook and there's video and really, really powerful. I think if you have had any loss in your life, I would say this is something that should be on your bookshelf or to give to somebody who you know is going through loss.
Kind of a what now moment, really, whether it's a loss or a change or, as you said, a relationship, a change in the status of a relationship or an illness or some kind, whatever, a job loss or retirement. And they could also go to my website, kendruck.com, and they might find other resources there. I have a whole bunch of articles on just about every possible subject that might have to do with a what now moment.
I love it. And what now moments are life's little game, right? I was working on my book, and the way I thought about it was like, every time you're like, okay, I've got this. And then God, universe goes, oh, it's time for your next class. Here you go. And you go, what now? And then you read Ken's book and you choose courage and you choose life and see how badass you are.
I want to acknowledge every person who comes to this podcast, because what you have created, you've had me in your living room. You invited me and honored me to be in your living room. You created this. And for everyone that chooses to come to this sacred place, I want to thank you for having me in your living room as well.
Aw, it's like a love fest on like Apple and YouTube. I mean, who knew, right?
Who knew?
And we all share that, I always, like the teacher comes into your life when you're ready for the teacher. And every person I have on the show, and particularly you, I just know that there's people who've been praying for a way to answer that question, what now? And so I'm so grateful that Christine, thank you, Christine, who brought us together in this lovely, lovely moment together. So ladies, I mean, oh my gosh, and gents, if you're listening too, this is a really great opportunity to life check yourself, to really look at how are you going to experience this happening to you, and look at how am I going to happen to it. And I just feel like there's so many nuggets. So rewind, get an action step, get the book, share with a friend. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast if you haven't, or listen to it on YouTube at Life Check Yourself. You can also follow me on Facebook. It's Marni Battista. It's not very creative. It's just Marni Battista. And you can find me on Instagram, Marni Battista _ and let us know how this podcast affected you. Lots of love. Ken, thank you for being here. And whatever you do, ladies, don't forget, life check yourself. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks for tuning into today's show. So if being in an intimate relationship in which you feel 100% seen, heard, and accepted by a high caliber man is a priority for you right now, and you're interested in seeing if you're a fit for working with me and my team at Dating with Dignity, here's what I want you to do. Just head over to DWD VIP, that's D as in dating, W, D as in dating, VIP.com, and book a call to speak with my team. We'll get on the phone with you for about 60 minutes, and you'll get crystal clear on what's stopping you from finding true love right now. We'll also take a look at what you want to create, what you want your whole life to look like when you're able to finally be fully expressed as a woman in a healthy relationship with an incredible guy. And if we can help you get from where you are right now to where you want to be, we will show you the fastest path possible that makes sense for you to do that. We help smart, successful women all over the world solve this one missing piece in their life so they can finally have it all. So to see if we can help you do the same thing, head over to DWDVIP.com. I'm Marni Battista, and let's talk soon.